The great chamber was silent. 16 species had gathered on the crystal world of Veth Prime, their representatives sitting in a perfect circle. Some were tall and thin like shadows, others were short and covered in scales. A few floated in special tanks filled with water. They had come from every corner of the galaxy, and they had come to make a decision. Ambassador Thren stood at the center. He was a Veloci, with 4 arms and skin the color of dark stone. His voice trembled as he spoke. "The reports are true," he said. "The species called humanity has done it. They have built ships that travel faster than light." The chamber erupted in whispers. Translators hummed and clicked as every species processed the words in their own language. "Impossible," said a Morthak elder. The Morthak were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had lived for millions of years and had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. "We watched this species. They were still fighting wars on their own planet. They were burning dead plants for energy. How could they achieve faster than light travel?" Thren pulled up a hologram. It showed a small ship with a strange engine at its back. The engine glowed with blue light. "They call it the Sung Drive," Thren explained. "It is named after the engineer who built it, a female human called Yuna Sung. She completed the design 3 of their years ago. Since then, they have built over 200 ships." "How long did it take them?" asked High Arbiter Kolis. He was ancient, even by Morthak standards. His body moved slowly, like a tree bending in the wind. But his mind was sharp. "Less than 300 cycles," Thren answered. The chamber fell completely silent. Every species in the room understood what this meant. The Morthak had taken 11,000 cycles to develop their first faster-than-light engine. The Veloci had taken 8,000. Even the quick-minded Selvine had needed 4,000 cycles. Humanity had done it in 300. "This is not possible," the Morthak elder repeated, but his voice was weaker now. "I have more information," Thren continued. He changed the hologram. Now it showed a human male standing on the bridge of a ship. He had dark hair and calm eyes. "This is Captain Han Tae-woo of the human vessel called Horizon's Edge. His ship was the first to leave their solar system. He traveled to the nearest star and returned safely. The journey took 4 days. 4 days, someone whispered. "That distance would take us 2 weeks, Thren nodded. "Their engine is faster than ours. And they are already improving it. Their engine is faster than ours and their engine is faster. Their engine is faster. Their engine is faster than ours." High Arbiter Kolis raised one of his long tendrils. The room became quiet again. "I have heard enough," he said. "I invoke Protocol 17. The words hung in the air like poison. Protocol 17 was the most extreme measure the Council had ever created. It meant total prohibition. No contact with the target species. No trade. No communication. No acknowledgement that they existed. The Council would surround their system with warships and wait. Wait for what? Wait for them to destroy themselves. That was what always happened. Aggressive species always burned too bright and too fast. They always fell. The Council had seen it happen 100 times before. "We will blockade their system," Kolis continued. "We will prevent them from leaving. And we will watch them collapse, as all dangerous species do." The vote was quick. 16 species raised their approval. The decision was unanimous. But far away, on the dark side of a frozen moon, something was happening. Captain Han Tae-woo sat in his command chair. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. They were young. Most of them. The oldest was only 42. They had grown up in a world that told them they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth. "Are you sure about this?" asked his first officer, a woman named Shin Jisoo. She had short hair and quick hands. She was the best pilot Tae-woo had ever seen. "Play it again," Tae-woo said. Jisoo pressed a button. The recording filled the bridge. It was the voice of Ambassador Thren, speaking to the Galactic Council. The words were in an alien language, but the ship's computer had already translated them. Tae-woo listened as the Council discussed humanity. He listened as they called his species dangerous. He listened as they voted to lock humanity inside their own solar system forever. When the recording ended, The bridge was silent. "They're going to blockade us," said a young officer named Baek Jun. He was only 25, fresh from the academy. "They're going to try," Tae-woo corrected. "Captain, they have thousands of ships. We have 200. How can we possibly—" "We won't fight them," Tae-woo said. He stood up and walked to the main view screen. Stars filled the darkness. Cold and distant. Fighting would be stupid. We would lose. Then what do we do? Tae-woo smiled. It was a small smile, but his crew knew it well. It was the smile he wore when he had a plan. "We don't go through them," he said. "We go around them." He pulled up a star chart. It showed the regions of space that the Council controlled. But it also showed the places they avoided. Dark zones. Dead zones. Areas filled with gravitational anomalies and radiation storms. Areas that no sane species would enter. "The Council thinks these regions are impassable," Tae-woo explained. "They think nothing can survive here. But we are not like them. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived ourselves." He pointed at a winding path through the dead zones. "I'm sending these coordinates to every ship in our fleet. If we can map a safe route through here, the Council's blockade means nothing. We can reach the rest of the galaxy without ever touching their territory." "And if there is no safe route?" Jisoo asked. "Then we make one." 3 days later, the horizon's edge entered the dead zones. The Council's sensors detected nothing. Their blockade remained in place, their ships watching an empty system. They had no idea that humanity had already slipped past them. The great game had begun, and humanity was already winning. In her small apartment back on Earth, Yuna Sung watched the stars through her window. She was 53 years old. With gray in her hair and lines on her face, she had spent her whole life dreaming of the stars. Now her dream was becoming real. She didn't know about the Council. She didn't know about the blockade. But she knew that her engine was carrying her people into the unknown, and she knew, with a certainty that filled her heart, that nothing in the universe could stop them now. Humanity was coming, and they were just getting started. 50 cycles passed. In human time, that was almost 5 years. The Council watched their blockade and felt satisfied. No human ships had tried to break through. No signals came from Earth. The dangerous species was contained, just as planned. Then the reports started coming. The first report came from a Veloci colony on a small world called Mirith 4. The colony was far from Council space, on the edge of known territory. It was a mining world, cold and quiet, with only 3,000 workers. The colony director was a Veloci named Keth. One morning, his sensors detected something strange. Mathematical patterns were broadcasting from the asteroid belt nearby. Not random noise. Not natural signals. Patterns that meant intelligence. Keth sent a scout ship to investigate. What they found made no sense. It was a mining station. It was clearly built by hands, with metal walls and glass windows, and machines that hummed with power. It floated among the asteroids like it had always been there. And inside the station, they found humans. There were 12 of them. 12 small, soft creatures with only 2 arms and no scales. They wore simple clothes and smiled at the scout ship through the viewport. The station commander was a woman named Kang Dami. She had dark hair tied back and grease on her hands from working on the machines. When she saw the Veloci ship, she waved. Then she held up a small cup and pointed at it. The scout ship's translator hummed. "Would you like some coffee?" her voice said through the speakers. The Veloci fled back to Mirith 4 and sent an emergency message to the Council. But this was only the beginning. Over the next 2 cycles, reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. Human outposts appeared on frozen moons. Human ships were seen in distant nebulas. Human traders visited primitive worlds that the Council had ignored for centuries. They weren't invading. That was the strange part. They weren't building weapons or forming armies. They were just settling, building homes, starting farms, opening small shops on backwater stations. High Arbiter Colas called an emergency session. How is this possible? He demanded. His ancient voice shook with anger. We blockaded their system. No ships left Earth. Our sensors confirmed this. Intelligence Officer Varek stepped forward. He was a Selvine, quick and nervous, with eyes that saw everything. He had been tracking the human expansion for months. High Arbiter, he said carefully. They did not go through the blockade. They went around it. He pulled up a star chart. It showed the Council's territory in blue. It showed the human expansion in red. The red dots were everywhere, spreading like drops of blood in water. Through the dead zones, Varek continued. They mapped a route through the gravitational anomalies. A navigator named Park Hyun-soo completed the mapping 18 months ago. The humans now call it the Hyun-soo Corridor. Thousands of their ships use it every day. The dead zones are impassable, someone said. For us, yes. For them. Varek paused. They lost many ships in the beginning. Our estimates suggest at least 40 vessels were destroyed during the mapping process. Over 300 humans died. And they continued? They continued. They are still continuing. Every month, they improve the route. Every month, more ships pass through safely. Kolis was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. We underestimated them. Yes, Varek agreed. We did. Far from the council chamber, on a frozen moon in the outer territories, a man named Park Hyun-soo stood at his window and watched the ships fly past. He was 41 years old now. His hair was starting to gray. The years of flying through the dead zones had left marks on his face and shadows in his eyes. He had lost friends out there. He had almost died himself, more times than he could count. But he had done it. He had mapped the impossible route. Every ship that flew past his window was proof. Every family that settled on a new world. Every child that would grow up under alien stars. They were all here because he had refused to give up. His daughter, Mira, came to stand beside him. She was 17 now, old enough to understand what her father had done. Are you proud? She asked. Hyun-soo thought about the question. He thought about the ships that had been lost. The people who had trusted his calculations and died when those calculations were wrong. He thought about the nights he had spent crying, alone in his cabin, wondering if he was leading his people to destruction. I don't know, he said honestly. I am grateful. Grateful that it worked. Grateful that we made it. The council still hates us, Mira said. They say we're dangerous. Maybe we are. Hyun-soo put his arm around his daughter. On the council world of Veth Prime, the debates continued. Some species wanted to declare war. The humans were spreading too fast, they said. Soon they would outnumber everyone else. Soon they would take over the galaxy. Other species were not so sure. The humans had not attacked anyone. They had not stolen resources or conquered worlds. They were just there. Everywhere, like water filling every crack and hole. What do they want? Asked the Morthak elder. Why do they spread so fast? What are they looking for? Nobody had an answer. The truth was simple. But the council could not understand it. Humans spread because spreading was what they did. They explored because they were curious. They built because they loved to build. They made friends with strange creatures because loneliness was the one thing they could not survive. The council saw a threat. The humans saw an adventure. On a small station called Nexus 7, a human trader named An Somi was making friends. Nexus 7 was a trading hub. A place where many species came to buy and sell. The council had approved it centuries ago. Back when they controlled everything. Now it was a mess of different creatures, different languages, different needs. Somi sold water filters. It was not exciting work, but it was useful. Many species needed clean water, and her filters were cheap and reliable. She had learned to speak 3 alien languages, and she was working on a 4th. Today, a young Korathi approached her stall. The Korathi were aquatic, with blue skin and large eyes. This one was clearly nervous. I need filters, the Korathi said. But I cannot pay much. My family's farm is failing. Somi looked at the Korathi for a long moment. Then she reached under her table and pulled out 3 filters. "Take these," she said. "Pay me when your farm is doing better." The Korathi's eyes widened. "You would trust me? You don't even know my name. You don't even know my name. Then tell me your name." "Veth. My name is Veth." "Nice to meet you, Veth." Somi smiled. "I'm Somi. Now go save your farm." Veth took the filters and left, still looking confused. Somi watched him go. She knew that many species saw humans as strange and frightening. She knew the council wanted her people gone. But she also knew something else. Trust was a seed. Plant enough seeds, and eventually, you grew a forest. And humanity was very, very good at planting seeds. 200 cycles passed. In human time, that was 20 years. The galaxy was not the same anymore. It started with the Korathi. They were a proud species, traders and farmers who lived on ocean worlds. For thousands of years, they had done everything the council told them. They followed the rules. They paid their taxes. They stayed quiet. Then their gravity generators started failing. The Korathi needed gravity generators to keep their farms running. Their ocean worlds were light, with weak, natural gravity. Without the generators, their crops would float away. Their animals would die. Their entire civilization would collapse. The council said they could not help. The technology needed was expensive and difficult. The Korathi would have to wait. Maybe in 100 cycles, the council would find a solution. The Korathi did not have 100 cycles, so they reached out to the humans. A trader named Lee Bora answered their call. She was 35 years old, with sharp eyes and a quick smile. She had been living on Nexus 7 for 6 years, selling everything from water filters to entertainment programs. She had friends in every species she had met. When the Korathi asked for help, she did not hesitate. "We have the technology," she told them. "Our engineers developed cheap gravity generators 3 years ago. We can have them to your homeworld in 2 weeks. What do you want in return?" asked the Korathi ambassador. He was suspicious. Every species wanted something. That was how the galaxy worked. "We want a trade agreement," Bora said. "You have medicines that grow only in your oceans. We need those medicines. In exchange, we will provide gravity technology at fair prices." "That is all?" "That is all." The Korathi ambassador stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something that no Korathi had ever done with a human before. He laughed. "You are strange creatures," he said. "But I think I like you." The trade agreement was signed on a waterworld station orbiting the Korathi homeworld. Bora had to learn how to hold her breath for 3 minutes to attend the ceremony. The Korathi respected that. They respected effort. After the Korathi came the Selvine. The Selvine were nervous creatures, always watching, always worrying. They had been afraid of humans since the beginning. But they were also practical. And they had a problem. Their children were dying. A disease was spreading through Selvine space. It attacked the young, leaving adults unharmed but killing everyone under the age of 50 cycles. The Selvine had tried everything. Nothing worked. A human doctor named Cho Eun-ho heard about the disease. He was working on Nexus 7, in a small clinic that treated anyone who walked through the door. He didn't ask about species or money, he just helped. When he heard about the Selvine children, he packed his bags and traveled to their homeworld. The Selvine were terrified of him at first. A human, on their planet? It was unthinkable. Prohibited, against every rule the council had made, but their children were dying, and this strange creature from a prohibited world said he could help. Eun-ho worked for 6 months. He barely slept. He studied the disease, tested medicines, failed, tried again. The Selvine watched him with fear and hope mixed together. Finally, he found the answer. The cure was simple, made from common chemicals that the Selvine had never thought to combine. Eun-ho showed them how to make it. He didn't ask for payment. He didn't ask for anything. "Why?" the Selvine leader asked him. "Why did you come here? Why did you help us?" Eun-ho thought about the question. He was exhausted, thin from months of work. His hands were shaking from too much coffee and not enough food. "Because you needed help," he said finally, and I could give it. The Selvine leader did not understand. In her experience, no one did anything for free. Everything had a price. Everything was a trade. But the human was already walking away. Already thinking about the next patient. The next problem. The next life he could save. The Selvine broke prohibition that day. They sent a message to the council saying that they would no longer follow Protocol 17. They would trade with humans. They would allow human ships in their space. The council was furious. They threatened sanctions. They threatened isolation. They threatened everything they could think of. The Selvine did not care. Their children were alive. Then came the Morthak. The Morthak were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had watched stars being born and dying. They thought they knew everything worth knowing, but they were dying. Not from disease. Not from war. From time itself. The Morthak lived for thousands of cycles. But even they could not live forever. Their population was shrinking. Their knowledge was being lost. Soon, there would be no Morthak left. They had accepted this fate. What choice did they have? Death came for everyone eventually. Then the humans came with an offer. We have been studying biology for only 300 years, said the human ambassador. She was a woman named Yoon Hana. 60 years old. With white hair and steady hands. In that time, we have tripled our own lifespan. We can do the same for you. The Morthak elders were shocked. Triple their lifespan? That would mean living for tens of thousands of cycles. That would mean seeing things that no Morthak had ever seen before. Why would you help us? The eldest Morthak asked. We voted to destroy you. We supported the prohibition. I know, Hana said. But you are dying. And we don't want you to die. Why not? We are your enemies. Hana smiled. It was a sad smile, full of old memories. You are not our enemies, she said. You are just people who were scared. We understand fear. We have been scared for our entire history. Scared of the dark. Scared of the cold. Scared of each other. She looked out the window at the stars. But we learned something important. Fear is a terrible reason to let someone die. So we stopped. We started helping instead. It doesn't always work. Sometimes we make things worse. But we keep trying, because trying is better than giving up. The Morthak elder was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I think, he said slowly, that we were wrong about you. The Morthak joined the Selvine and the Karathi. They broke prohibition. They welcomed human scientists to their worlds. They shared their ancient knowledge in exchange for the gift of longer life. And on the council world of Veth Prime, High Arbiter Kolis watched his power crumble like sand. The prohibition was failing. Species were defecting. The humans were spreading, not through war, but through kindness, through medicine and trade and simple acts of generosity that the council had never thought possible. What are we going to do? His advisors asked. Kolis had no answer. For the first time in his ancient life, he was afraid. Not of death. Not of war. He was afraid of being wrong. And somewhere out in the stars, humanity kept spreading. They kept building. They kept helping everyone they met. They didn't know they were changing the galaxy. They were just being human. High Arbiter Kolis called the final session on a cold morning when the crystal towers of Veth Prime were covered in ice. He was old now. Older than any Morthak in living memory. His body moved like a dying tree. Slow and painful. But his mind was still sharp. Sharp enough to see what was happening. Sharp enough to fear it. The chamber was full. Every species had sent their highest representatives. Some had come to support Kolis. Others had come to oppose him. A few had come just to watch. We face a crisis, Kolis began. His voice echoed through the great hall. The species we prohibited has spread through half the galaxy. They have corrupted our allies. They have broken our laws. They have woven themselves into our economies and cultures so deeply that removing them would destroy us. He paused to let the words sink in. We have one choice left. We must act now, with all our strength, or there will be no galaxy left to save. The Morthak delegate, an elder named Thos, raised his tendril to speak. What are you suggesting, High Arbiter? War? If necessary. The word hung in the air like smoke. War. No one had spoken that word in the council chamber for 10,000 cycles. The last galactic war had killed billions. It had burned worlds and ended species. Everyone remembered the horror. You cannot be serious, said the Selvine delegate. We just saved our children because of human medicine. You want us to kill the people who saved them? I want to save our galaxy, Colas replied. The humans are too powerful, too fast, too dangerous. Every cycle they grow stronger while we grow weaker. If we wait much longer, they will rule everything. And if they do? The voice came from the Karathi ambassador, a female with blue scales and calm eyes. What if they rule? Would that be so terrible? They have ruled nothing so far. They have only helped. They helped to gain power. It is a strategy. Or maybe they helped because they wanted to help. Have you considered that? Colas slammed his tendril against his podium. The crack echoed through the chamber. Enough. I will not debate with traitors. The vote will happen now. We will decide today whether to declare war on humanity. May I speak first? The new voice was soft, gentle. It came from the back of the chamber, where the holographic representative stood. A new image flickered to life. It was a human. She was small and old, with gray hair and wrinkled skin. She wore simple clothes. Nothing special. Nothing threatening. Her eyes were dark and calm. My name is Nari, she said. I am the elected representative of the human collective. I believe I have the right to speak before you vote to destroy my people. Colas stared at her with cold eyes. You have no rights here. Your species is prohibited, and yet I am here. Nari smiled slightly. Your encryption was very good. It took us almost a year to break it. But we have been listening to your broadcasts for a long time now. High Arbiter, we know what you think of us. We know what you fear. Then you know why you must be stopped. I know why you believe that. Nari folded her hands in front of her. May I tell you a story? Colas wanted to refuse. He wanted to shut down her hologram and proceed with the vote. But the other delegates were watching. Curious. Even the species who supported him seemed interested. Speak quickly, he said. Nari nodded. 300 cycles ago, you discovered our species. You watched us from the shadows. You saw our wars, and our pollution, and our cruelty to each other. You decided we were dangerous. You voted to lock us inside our own system forever. She paused. You were right. We are dangerous. We are aggressive, and competitive, and stubborn. We fight with each other over small things. We destroy things we love. We make terrible mistakes. She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces. But you missed something important. You saw our darkness, but you didn't see our light. You saw our wars, but you didn't see the peace that always followed. You saw our cruelty, but you didn't see our kindness. Her voice grew stronger. We came into this galaxy looking for enemies. That was what we expected. Every story we told ourselves said that aliens would try to destroy us. But instead of fighting, we decided to try something different. We decided to make friends. She smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. We gave the Karathi gravity technology because they needed it. We cured the Selvine children because they were dying. We helped the Morthak live longer because we didn't want them to disappear. We weren't trying to gain power. We just saw people in trouble, and we helped. A trick, Colas said. You helped to make them depend on you. Maybe. Or maybe we helped because that's who we are. Humans have always been helpers. We take care of our sick and our old. We teach our children to share. We run into burning buildings to save strangers. It is not logical. It is not strategic. It is just us. She turned to face Colas directly. You want to declare war. You think you can destroy us before we destroy you. But I have something to tell you. She raised her hand, and a new hologram appeared. It showed a star map, filled with tiny dots of light. Each of these dots is a human ship. There are 12,000 of them. They are positioned throughout the galaxy, at every major world and trade route. Kolis felt his heart freeze. Admiral Yoon Sok commands this fleet, Nari continued. He is a good man. A careful man. He does not want war. Is this a threat? No. Nari shook her head. These ships are not here to attack you. They are here to protect our friends. The Korathi, the Selvine, the Morthak, and everyone else who welcomed us. If you declare war, you will not be fighting humanity alone. You will be fighting every species we have helped. She let the words settle. But we don't want to fight at all. We never wanted to fight. We just wanted to join you. To be part of your galaxy. To share what we have and learn what you know. She looked around the chamber one last time. You prohibited us because you were afraid. I understand fear. But fear makes people do terrible things. It makes them see enemies where there are only strangers. It makes them destroy what they could have loved. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. We are not your enemies. We never were. We are just people who were lonely. People who looked at the stars and dreamed of friends. She stepped back. The vote is yours. Choose wisely. Her hologram flickered and died. The chamber was silent. Kolis looked at the other delegates. The Morthak elder was studying his tendrils. The Selvine delegate was whispering with her aides. The Korathi ambassador sat perfectly still, her blue scales catching the light. The vote will proceed, Kolis said. But his voice was weaker now. All in favor of declaring war on humanity, signal now. He raised his tendril. No one else moved. For a long, terrible moment, Kolis stood alone. Then, slowly, he lowered his tendril. The motion fails, he said quietly. This session is ended. He turned and left the chamber without another word. Behind him, the delegates began to whisper. Something had changed. Something fundamental. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere out in the stars, 12,000 human ships waited, ready to protect their friends, ready to build a new future, ready to prove that kindness was stronger than fear. 300 cycles had passed since the Prohibition began. The galaxy was not the same anymore. The old council was gone. In its place stood the United Galactic Assembly, a new organization built on different principles. Every species had a voice. Every world had a vote. And at the center of it all, humans sat as equals among friends. The capital world was called Haven. It was a beautiful planet, green and blue, with tall mountains and deep oceans. Once it had been a dead rock, frozen and lifeless. Then human engineers and Korathi architects had worked together to transform it. They had warmed the atmosphere, planted forests, and filled the seas with life. Now it was home to millions of beings from dozens of species. In the central square of Haven's largest city, a memorial stood. It was simple. Just a black stone wall covered with names. Thousands of names. All the humans who had died in the Hyun-Su corridor, mapping the impossible route that had changed everything. Yuna Sung came to the memorial on the anniversary of the first crossing. She was old now, 92 years old, with white hair and spotted hands. Her body was fragile, but her eyes were still sharp. She had lived long enough to see her dream become reality, long enough to watch humanity spread across the stars. She stood before the wall and read the names. Some she remembered. Others were strangers. But all of them had given their lives so that their people could be free. A young woman approached and stood beside her. She had dark hair and quick eyes, and she wore the uniform of a pilot. Your Dr. Sung, the young woman said. My grandmother told me about you. She said you built the engine that made all this possible. Yuna smiled. I helped. Many people helped. The engine was just the beginning. My name is Park Mira. My grandfather was Hyun-Su. Yuna turned to look at her. I knew him. He was a brave man. Stubborn. He never gave up. Even when everyone said the corridor was impossible. Mira nodded. I fly the corridor now. Every week. It's safe these days. Boring even. That was his dream. Yuna looked back at the wall. He wanted it to be boring. He wanted people to fly through without even thinking about how hard it was. They stood in silence for a moment. Do you think they'll ever stop being afraid of us? Mira asked. The other species, I mean. Some of them still look at humans like we're monsters. Yuna considered the question. Around them, the square was busy with life. A Karathi merchant was selling fish from a cart. A group of Selvine children were chasing each other around a fountain. 2 Morthak elders sat on a bench, their ancient eyes watching everything. At the fountain, the Selvine children had found some human children to play with. They were laughing, splashing water at each other, completely unaware that their species had once been enemies. Fear fades, Yuna said finally. It takes time, sometimes a lot of time. But eventually, people realize that the thing they feared was never as scary as they thought. And trust? Trust takes longer. Yuna smiled. But we have time now. All the time in the universe. That evening, there was a celebration. The assembly hall was decorated with lights and flowers. Representatives from every species came together to mark the anniversary. There was music from 100 different worlds, food from 1,000 different cultures. Nari stood at the center of it all. She was 105 years old now, kept alive by the same technology she had offered to the Morthak all those years ago. Her hair was white, her face lined with age. But her mind was still sharp. The Morthak elder Thos approached her. He was ancient beyond measure, but he moved with new energy. The human treatments had given him another 10,000 cycles of life. I owe you an apology, he said. 300 cycles ago, I voted to destroy your people. I thought you were dangerous. I thought you would ruin everything. Nari smiled. And now? Now I think we were fools. Thos looked around the celebration hall. We spent 1,000,000 cycles building our civilization. We were proud of what we had created. But we were also dying. Slowly, quietly, without even realizing it. He turned back to Nari. You woke us up. You reminded us that change is not something to fear. That new things can make the galaxy better, not worse. We learned from you too, Nari said. The Morthak have seen more than any species in history. Your knowledge has helped us avoid so many mistakes. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needed. Not one species ruling over others, but many species learning from each other. They stood together, watching the celebration. Across the hall, Dr. Cho Eunho was talking with a group of young doctors from 5 different species. He was teaching them, passing on everything he had learned. Soon he would be gone, but his knowledge would live on. Lee Bora was dancing with a Karathi trader, laughing as they tried to match their movements. Neither of them was very good. But neither of them cared. Admiral Yoon Sok stood near the door, watching quietly. His fleet was still out there, still protecting the friends humanity had made. But he hoped that someday soon, the ships would not be needed anymore. And in the corner, Captain Han Tae-woo sat alone. He was old now, retired from flying. But he had come to the celebration because he couldn't stay away. He had been there at the beginning. He had to be there at the end. Nari walked over and sat beside him. You look thoughtful, she said. Tae-woo nodded slowly. I was thinking about the day we first heard the Council's broadcast. They said we were dangerous. They said we would destroy ourselves. They were wrong. Were they? Tae-woo looked at her. We are dangerous. We could have fought them. We could have conquered them. We had the ships, the weapons, the will, but we didn't. No, we didn't. He smiled. And it was the same smile his crew had known decades ago. We chose to be something else instead. We chose to be friends. Nari reached over and took his hand. That's what makes us human, she said. Not the aggression, not the stubbornness, the choice. We always have a choice. They sat together, watching the celebration. Outside, the stars were shining. The same stars that humanity had dreamed about for thousands of years. The same stars they had finally reached. They were no longer alone in the universe. They had found friends, allies, family among the stars. And somewhere out there, a new ship was leaving haven. It carried colonists from 3 different species, heading toward a planet that no one had ever visited. They would build something new together, something that had never existed before. The Council had prohibited humanity 300 cycles ago. They thought they could stop the tide. They thought they could lock humanity inside their little system and watch them fade away. They were wrong. Humanity was not a problem to be contained. Humanity was a bridge. And now, finally, the galaxy was learning to walk across it, together.